Greetings, sir and sirettes, and welcome back to From the Depths with me, Lathrix, and of course, welcome at long last to our first carrier build video. In today's video, we're going to be starting off the construction of our aircraft carrier, which is going to be the first of two, and this one is going to be an airship. I've decided I'm going to have two versions of the carrier, one which only carries the fighters, which is going to be the airship version, so this is a smaller version of the two, and a second on the ocean itself, which will have the fuel refineries and everything else, which will also act as a resource barge, essentially, being able to constantly produce resources for all of the other crafts in the fleet. Now, the reason why we're not adding the fuel refinery to this craft is because, sadly, the fuel refinery is less efficient the higher up you are. As you can see right now, converting 600 materials to 82 fuel. However, if I drop altitude, it increases, and eventually goes much, much higher if you are on water level. However, if you're underwater, it doesn't work, though I think if you have an air pump, it does. Either way, this craft will hold a lot of fuel, but it won't be making fuel itself. Now, the reason why I have all of these jets currently just sitting here on this rather weird frame is because I'm trying to decide on two separate ways of holding the jets. On the water version, we're going to have a runway where all the jets simply sit, but on this one, I want them either in their own little bays or hanging off the side of the aircraft carrier. So, if we do it this way, I think it'll be way more efficient because we can build around them, like so, and then once we have a gap, we can build outwards again, and then put down the next aircraft there, and so on and so forth, giving us actually quite a bit of space inside, and they're not really taking up all that much space on the craft itself. This version, on the other hand, I think would look really cool. We could build a complete bay for them, we could have them sit inside the craft, and even use, I don't really know, perhaps something like the hologram projector or something like that in order to make a fake opaque front to it, almost like a spacecraft. So we have a sort of force field where the aircraft come out of, or we just leave them open and have them sitting in the bay regardless. This, however, will take up a lot of space and will make the aircraft carrier just that, a carrier and pretty much nothing else. I think if we go with the side option, what it means is we can quite easily have a top section here, which can hold some basic weaponry. This thing isn't going to be mostly for fighting, it's mostly for fuel storage, and to simply bring the craft into the fight. But we could quite easily put an advanced cannon or some cram cannons on the top, and that'll be all nice and easy. Though saying that, if we go with the bay option, we could easily have some cram cannons on the bottom. So I'm not too sure which we're going to go with. I think for now, we're going to stick with this option, having them hang on the side, and then using mimics to make it look like they're being held via, I don't know, some piping, or actually quite a few options. Or even things like this, the compressor and other objects can easily be toned down, made a lot smaller, and then can be used in conjunction with chains or pipes to look like just proper things to hold it in place, honestly. There's lots of things we can do there. So for now, we'll just go with this option. Now, we could make these a little bit further from each other, but I do want the indent where they're being held to be a bit extreme, so we can add things around them, as I think that'll just look really, really nice in all this space here. So, 1, 2. I'll do the measurements properly in a second. So something like this, then a space of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So that'd be 11, it's the last one, I think. Then we place the next one, the next one, the next one, so it holds 6. Then we have a cap on top, which will also go over all of this, so we can hide the tractor beam, which can be a little bit higher up, since that can go really far away, in fact, as you can see. That's still being held. Okay, so I'll be right back once I've made a more basic skeleton. Also, I'm going to be changing the jets this episode. I'm going to be making them more fuel efficient, since I found out I can sacrifice 20 meters per second, and then they cost less than a third of the current fuel intake, which would be lovely. So I decided we are going to go with this option with the jets being dropped down. So what we're going to be doing is having quite an extreme indent where the jets are being held. That will give us not that much space between them, but at the same time, it can mean we can go quite extreme where they're not being held. So we're going to have at least 6 of them. And I'm going to be making a more fuel-efficient version of the jets, because it turns out, after doing a bit of tweaking with the engines themselves, I can actually sacrifice 20 meters per second for 2/3 of the fuel intake. So they only cost 1/3 of the fuel intake, but only go 20 meters per second slower, which is not all that bad. They still go 140, which is absolutely fine. Okay, change of plan. That was looking stupider and stupider the more I built, so instead we're going to have them much closer to each other, only a slight gap between them, and we're going to build around here. So we're going to have, most likely, some repair tentacles here, some other stuff just to make it look like a proper engineering bay, and we're going to hold them very close to each other, and then probably expand the craft after that. Or at very least expand the top section, so probably from here upwards is going to be all the airship mechanical parts. Weapons, ability to fly, for instance, potato storage. Ah, now this is interesting. As you add more material storage, the circle around us, which is how far we can refuel the craft and share other resources, increases. So if we have enough storage, which is actually quite cheap, the carrier can feed all of these aircraft in a fight, even if they start going really far away from the carrier. I wonder if that's also true for fuel. I'm hoping it is, because we're going to have lots of fuel. Yes, it is. Okay, that's absolutely fine then. Okay, it's going to turn everyone to God mode for a second. Actually, no, I'm not. None of the darts. I want to see if this hurts the darts as it currently is. Oh, look, a marauder. Oh, yep, that just shredded them. Oh, it's the docking stations. Yeah, of course it is. Their hitboxes. I was going to say it's a bit insane, but nope, I've just placed them way too close. My fault, in other words. Okay, let's put the tractor beams a little bit further down. Well, all I need to do to begin with is just have a look-see at the damage done, and yep, it was only from the tractor beams. The wings are fine, everything else is fine. Lovely. These tractor beams are going to be much higher up anyway as I build. So, back to building. We can keep this style. That's quite small. We could make this quite a small craft. By my standards. There we go. So what I had just done is I'd accidentally placed all of the controllers a little bit too close to the craft itself. Also, of course, we're much higher up than this. In the other tests, they got away just fine. Currently, they are boats. Well, 3 of them aren't. Need to do some tests with the craft moving and everything else, and we'll adjust as we go. So I've just removed all the stuff I put down earlier, the extra little sections here and over here, and some of the walkway in the middle as well, just to be on the safe side. They get back so slowly. So I'm trying to think about what weaponry I want this thing to have. Now, it doesn't need to be a powerhouse. The whole point is this is a carrier. It's going to be holding lots of fuel, lots of materials. It's going to have healing capabilities for the craft which is going to send out. And I may even have them return when they're damaged, if that's possible. I haven't really been looking at the new control blocks. So, what do I want? Definitely going to be adding flares. Maybe some other form of anti-missile system, either a laser or perhaps using the anti-missile controller for our advanced cannons. That might be interesting. Maybe just lots of small cram cannons. That might be a good option, honestly. We'll have this space here if we do indeed keep this runway. And although it doesn't look like much, because it isn't, you can actually have a decent cram cannon of this size, as long as you have only one barrel. Either static or on a simple turret. Not too sure. I think I will have a spinally mounted cram cannon, though, just for the fun of this. A 2000mm cram. Testing out a couple of spinally mounted cram cannons, one set to fire after the other. Essentially, they're both the same weapon, just one is like 8mm higher gauge than the other. Yep, goes inside the target, detonates, that turret is gone. Second shot, sadly hit a very similar place, went through there, so can't really see what that one did, but yep, that turret is completely gone. And this is actually a very cheap weapon. It's a really simple weapon as well, just goes down the body of the craft. Doesn't really get in the way of anything else. Bit of a rubber shot there, and the second one didn't even make it because it went underwater before it fired. Yep. Okay, I am satisfied with that. It's not going to be the strongest weapon in the world, but for its very limited price, and how easy it was to implement, and how easy it is to defend, I'm more than happy with it. That is beautiful. I've added 2 small cram cannons to the bottom of the carrier. Where did that bomber go? Oh, there it is. Hello. Now, of course, if there are multiple targets we're fighting, all of the aircraft will be going after those, since their target prioritization likes very small targets. The bomber then attacks, which is our main source of damage. That is lovely. Absolutely lovely. Okay. And then everything returns. So I think I may change my mind about how I'm going to do a few things. First of all, I'm scaling back all of the anti-air stuff on the top. It's just getting too expensive and honestly a bit silly. And instead of having the bomber on the top, I am tempted to have it hang off the back instead. So give it its own little area like all the darts. And then that way the top can be completely used for weaponry, for anything we want. Because at this point, I'm essentially turning this into a capital airship. There's going to be a lot of stuff inside this craft, so doing this will give me all of this space here for all of the airship's basic functions, like the ability to fly, for instance. But saying that, it's going to be a bit more difficult to place thrusters and such on the back, so I'm not too sure. Yeah, that's the problem though, it's just far too big. Also, wow, it's storming outside and my window just got hit by a stone, I think. Well, I'll take that as a sign we shouldn't do this. I have never made so many changes to one design other than this one. This one has become a nightmare build at this point. Still having loads of fun with it, but my god, have I just redone the same section so many times. Those large cram cannons are no longer there. I will be re-adding them later, but instead of just 2, I'm going to be adding 4, so 1 here, 1 here, and then mirrored on the other side, and I'm not going to have the weapon go all the way through the craft. I need this space for other things. Just trying to build with that was not working out at all. So what I think I need to do now is just get this thing airborne. I need to start putting in the engines, I need to start putting in the ability to move forwards, and I ultimately need to decide how I'm going to do the structure on the top. I'm actually tempted to keep the bomber at the back, so tell me how you feel about that. I'm definitely not finishing this design in this video, it's just taking way too much time now. And I think I'm okay with this. What we can do is add a crane section to the back, and once again use mimics as if it's being held in place. And that way we have all the top here to do whatever we want with it. We can add some smaller weapons, like the anti-air which was at the front, we can now put on the side. I can perhaps add another turret. I'm, of course, going to be adding the flares and stuff like that. And that can all be put up here. And, of course, the AI itself. That way, if we're hit from underneath, since this will be quite high up in the air, the AI is nice and far away. And we're going to have at least 2 AI, maybe 3. Okay, I've been tinkering with some thrusters, and already we have a mostly stable craft. And that made me jump then. Did not realise we had any ammo on this craft. So, we still need to re-add the crams there, but now it'll point at the target and try to maintain distance. I've currently set it so it won't retreat. So it's not really like the Medrengard, where the Medrengard just keeps going back and back and back and back and back forever and ever. Well, at least to stay 2,000 meters away from the target. This one will try to stay within 200 to 1,500, and that's a large range. So unless an enemy gets right up against us, we're just going to sit here. Weirdly stably. Well, that's actually surprising how stable that is with the minimal stuff I've just added. Okay, so what we need to do now is add some backwards propulsion. Do the back section there, and then we can work on the main body up here. Also, I've done a little bit of painting, and I think it looks better already. I'm starting to like this craft. It's took me a while, but now I'm starting to understand what I want from this. Even though it does look way too much like a regular ship. But I'm okay with that. So currently we are moving backwards slightly because of the cannons, and we don't really care enough to try and move forwards, because again, huge range. And these are the really rubbish little cram cannons we have at the front. They still do a decent bit of damage, honestly. But soon, better ones. Okay, these new shells are from much smaller cram cannons than the previous spinally mounted ones, or the spinal mounted ones, if I can use my words. So, let's see if these do enough. If I go inside, 3 layers, detonate. Yep, seem fine by me. We'll have to test it out versus some heavier metal, but we can have a potential of 6 of these. There, there, and there. Originally just there and there, but we could easily fit another one. These are absolutely tiny. I always underestimate crams, I've noticed. Yeah, they're nowhere near as strong as the ones before, but I feel like hitting all over the enemy target with these might be better. And we can even set them to separate AIs potentially, so fire at different blocks. Or we could just have the aim point selection constantly shift where it's firing. Especially if we stagger them. Okay, I continue. Okay, I've just added a delay to the jets. Hopefully this will work. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That was so cool. So there's absolutely no chance they're going to hit each other upon release, and now they're going to get at different distances and different heights. So everything should be absolutely fine. Lovely. Okay. We're getting there now. So now the jets can be released nice and safely. I'm still considering about the bombers. In fact, I'm tempted not even to have the bomber at this point. And focus more on the weaponry of the carrier. So, opinions on that, please, in the comments below. Because, again, not finishing this today. Having a lot of fun with it now at this point. All the nightmares have now stopped. Okay, our first combat test, just to make sure everything's working. The carrier itself is still immortal, so if it gets hit, it's not that it's super defended. It's just a matter of it's literally immortal right now. All of the aircraft are not, though, and they all released just fine, even though the carrier was turning at the time, which is a really, really good indication that everything's fine. I will keep on doing more tests to see if they ever do catch on anything, but still. Oh yeah, I didn't set required accuracy on these things. Anyway. Get the bombers coming back around. Fantastic. I also want to see how the front crams work. Well, one of the jets got destroyed. Not bad. Not bad. Considering how cheap and small they are, that isn't bad at all. And then the bombs doing far more. Knocking out, I think, 3 weapons. This is how I want it, though. I don't want the carrier to really be a powerhouse. We could make these crams far nastier, but right now, they get the job done. They'll go through armor, they'll go through wood very easily. Then they'll detonate inside. If they hit the right place, they will be devastating, but mostly they're just fun to watch. That is really nice. One thing to note is I've just realised if you add up all of the volume and all of the cost of this thing, neither come close still to our Cram Cruiser. We still have a bit of volume to spare and a lot of cost. So that's really, really nice. So even if you consider this one vehicle, there's no problems there. So how much more do I really want to add to this thing? I think not that much. Just reinforce the armor, especially on the front. Make sure the engine's protected. Add some flares, perhaps some more light weaponry on the top. Definitely need a second AI. And that's pretty much it. But still need to sculpt it a bit. But I think the working prototype is a working prototype. So with that, thank you so much for watching. If you have enjoyed, then of course, likes, favourite, shares, comments, all that good stuff helps out me, helps out the channel, and most importantly, shows that From the Depths is a series you wish to see continued in the future. Although this is a very difficult build for me, I have been having so much fun with it, and I can't wait to see the final finished product. Seeing all of the jets scramble to attack the enemy is just phenomenal to watch, and I love the idea of them essentially just being weapons for the carrier. Next time, we'll finish off the carrier, we'll do some light modifications to the jets, since I still want to make them cheaper, and we're all done. Need some name suggestions. I think this will be a one-off carrier, since I do want a smaller version which only holds the jets, and only a couple of them. That will likely be a boat, or a very small aircraft. This will be a one-off in the fleet. The main carrier. My little baby. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.